Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Between Sessions with Barry. We have a very interesting guest today, you guys. I'm really excited. We're joined with Kristine Hoestermann. I don't know why I had Christine on my mind. Kristine Hoestermann, licensed clinical social worker, mental health innovator, and founder of Rare, period. A brand sparking conversations around rare, chronic, and invisible conditions with over 15 years of experience across healthcare, education, and mental health tech. She specializes in turning evidence-based practices into real-world tools. She most recently led mental health wellness at Cabana, where she developed scalable programming and the balanced self framework. She also hosts the podcast You're Always Fine, where she challenges the pressure to always have it all together. Welcome to the episode. I feel like I could actually have 3 episodes with you, so we might have to have you back, but I'm glad you're here. I have a lot of things I want to talk about, so let's just jump in. Could we talk about Rare, since the topic of this podcast is between sessions of Barry's, right? We at Barry's really feel so strongly about helping the clinician get the support they need between sessions. So what you're doing with Rare, when I saw that, I was fascinated. We'll talk about it, then I'll share a little bit about myself and why I was like, I love this. So can you tell us about that? Maybe we could start out there.
It was 2016. I graduated in 2012, so I was only 4 years into the profession. But, kind of on that escalation, I had got my first few jobs under my belt, living in D.C., working in the D.C. public schools, and just feeling successful. It's kind of was like that. 26, feeling great. And then the symptoms started coming, and then I was losing my memory. I was losing my hair. My feet were going numb. And I would go doctor after doctor, and they would just be like, your tests are fine. Your levels are great. There's nothing. And so I actually had one doctor tell me that I was so good at my job that I was suppressing, the hardships of my job. And that is why my body was doing this. I was like, we have a word for that. It's somatization. And no, I don't think I'm that good at my job.
Yeah.
And this was all happening while I had to still be, from 9 to 5, the same version of me that, operating at 100, but I was at a 20% capacity.
Right.
And so didn't have a name for it. A doctor told me, arthritis 10 years ago didn't have a name. We just don't have a name. And so it was kind of in this rare space. I knew nothing really about the rare disease space. I just knew it was isolating. It was like my walls were caving in. I felt like I had no way of connecting to the world anymore. And so I used a skill I never had. I love small details. I love personalized things, but I would just go to Etsy and do that. And so as I felt like I was no longer good at anything I used to do, I was like, oh, let me just try. So I started designing things, and it really became my way of reintegrating into the world. And I thought if I could wear it across my chest, like if someone could see it, then maybe I could start a conversation about like what I was dealing with and struggling with. What I didn't expect, though, was how fast the community would grow and how many people felt the same way. And what started for me as this disease has really trickled into like every invisible thing that we're going through, whether it's divorce, your pet dying, whatever struggle you're bringing into a space, there's a million little things that bring you into that space and presenting in that way. And we just most of the time have no idea what people are going through. Yeah. And it just became a very fast community that honestly saved my life tenfold.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, before we hit record, I was saying I definitely have invisible illnesses. And I love to just be really open on this podcast. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome with hypermobility type. And I also have celiac disease, 2 things that nobody could ever identify because it's like a cluster of symptoms. And I got the same stuff. Oh, you're anxious. You have a fast bowel system, it took me probably 15 years to get diagnosed and even learn that I shouldn't be eating gluten with celiac disease. So, and that exasperated everything else with the Ehlers-Danlos. And there's days as a clinician, as somebody that runs multiple income streams, as a brand consultant for Barry's, all of that, you can't function. You just can't function, So when I saw that you were coming on as a guest, I was reading your bio. I was like, we got to talk about that a little bit, clinicians, if you're struggling with these invisible illnesses or things going on, it's okay to get support and talk about it and to call in sick, all of that stuff that I would never do. I would suffer through everything, So I'd love to talk about your perspective, you're the expert in this. How do you help people with accepting that and being better about that stuff, especially clinicians,
So I think the first thing I would say is we are taught in school to be these blank slates. And like that is just so not even possible. And I think it actually hurts the therapeutic alliance so much when we pretend that we are just not people. I think that this idea that you have to be on all the time is just, it's not even feasible. And then add in like something like I too have Ehlers-Danlos and I have the trifecta of, POTS, mast cell, endometriosis. It's just a lot all the time. And I found my biggest struggle was when I was trying to hide it from my clients. And so I essentially stopped practicing for a whole month before COVID happened. I will say my timing in COVID, a whole month, I had stepped away because I was like, I couldn't keep it all together anymore. And I felt like I was just doing a disservice to everything. And so I stepped away, but then COVID happened. The blessing in that for, I think, most of us with invisible illnesses is that it opened up a whole new world of being able to do work and also save our spoons. I don't know if you are familiar with the spoon theory.
Maybe you can tell them.
Oh, sure. I mean, we'll also link this story in maybe in your show notes. But, the spoon theory is that everyone gets an amount of energy, and we call it spoons. And the difference is most people will replenish that energy throughout the day. However, for those who are chronically ill, invisible struggles, or dealing with really anything, right, there's no guarantee on when that replenishment comes. And everyday tasks, such as just like taking my medicine, getting out of bed, showering, those are all things that take away spoons before I even sit down to do my job. Yes. And so walking in with one spoon to do the job that we do is very, very difficult. And when COVID happened, though, I made a promise to myself that I was going to approach my practice differently, and I was going to be 100% honest because I'm on gabapentin. And gabapentin, I swear sometimes I wake up and I don't know my name, or I'm talking to you and I will have the biggest meltdown of like stream of thought. And how that comes off in a session is like, then I'm not paying attention. Yeah. And so rather than have that moment with a client where they think I'm just not invested in them, being upfront and honest and being like, hey, so just so you know, I have a rare disease and I do it in every discovery call now. Nice. And I'm just like, this is what it looks like. And that might not work for every client. I find though that it has worked for almost every client that I've stepped into the room with, that transparency. And also just loosening the grip a little bit to this idea that you're just some perfect blank slate. I tell them sometimes I might have to cancel a session short term. One of the things I personally do though is I give them the same right that like they might have to cancel a session short term. And I know like not everybody has that like flexibility to do that, but it was something that was important to me that was like, this grace would not be only a one-sided street. And I found that has just helped my relationships within the session. And also if I got him like, oof, I need to drink water or whatever I need, I find that they're so incredibly willing. And they also feel connected to me in a way that I thought they would only see it as a deficit. But it turns out that it just really expanded our ability to work together. It also then gave me the opportunity to specialize in it. Nobody knows better than somebody going through a chronic illness what it's like to have a chronic illness. 1 in 10 people have a rare disease. 1 in 10 Americans. Like, that's crazy. Most likely, people on your caseload are suffering from things that they don't even know that you can help them with, such as like energy allotment. One of the things my doctors would always say is manage your stress. Hello, life is stressful. How would you like me to do that? And it wasn't until I opened my mind and I started realizing like, oh my gosh, I can't control what stress comes in my life, right? But I can allow, certain conversations I know will drain me to no end. I step out of those conversations. I know how to manage myself and my symptoms better. It also helps me in deciding what clients I really can and cannot take based on that like energy level.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Such important things to talk about. So another thing we always sort of touch on in this podcast is therapists that are doing more than just therapy, right? You're doing that as well. So you've touched on the Etsy store or whatever. So are you designing the clothes that I looked at your shop and I saw the zebras and I'm like, oh, she must know about Ehlers-Danlos or whatever. I saw the zebra emblem or whatever. But can we talk about that a little bit? Like that part of the entrepreneurial process? Because I think
much like you said, yes, I think that, gosh, again, the world is like, I feel like genuinely like our oyster as therapists in this like time period right now between like mental health tech, content creation. What you're talking about is I actually decided I didn't want to build on anyone else's land. And I like built my own website, taught myself to code. And that's where my website is now. I design everything is from my own experience, my own design, me and my iPad in the middle of the night. And it's become just this creative outlet for me to express what I'm going through when sometimes words fail me. It's really hard to understand. I mean, I always thought I was an empathetic person, but I didn't even realize how much judgment I had when, like, hardworking was a very big thing in my family. And so there was never a good reason to miss work. But then here I was missing work all the time. And I was like, wait a second, you just don't know why people are missing work. You make assumptions. And again, these biases that you don't really always know you have until you go through something. I'm very involved. I mean, we're down here now in my studio, but I do everything from designing it to printing it to pressing it, packaging it, and getting it right out the door, you know, with a handwritten note in every single one of them. Because again, I think connection is so important in these spaces.
You guys have got to check it out. I was looking at it. I'm really interested in the sweatshirt that's like the accessibility sweatshirt. It's got like zippers, like all these. And
yeah.
Tell me about that. Like, how does it help people?
Okay, so
thought it was cool.
Yes, I always forget about that one. It's one of those things that, like, I never did a tech pack before or anything. I just, at the same time it took me 4.5 years to get approved for IVIG. And at the very same time, my aunt was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so she was doing chemo. And so I remember the first time going, and I'm trying to work because, again, there is no off days. You don't get like days for chemo and days for IVIG and treatment. I would be in there for 4 days every month for 11 hours. And you just don't get that much time, especially when you're working in the schools. And so we were remote. And so I was trying to teach a kindergarten social emotional learning class with my arms like out of my thing. And I'm like, this is just not going to work. Like, there was nothing comfortable, nothing presentable about it. It was scary for the kids. I was like, I've got to figure something out. And so I asked my aunt what she was going through in her experience. And I designed a completely accessible sweatshirt that is, in my opinion, so comfortable. I mean, I got it patented. Now there's more on the market.
It's amazing.
There's more like brands on the market doing it now, but at the time there was nothing. There was no any other things. And so the sleeves, you're right, have hidden zippers here in case she had a port and I didn't. So it's like, and also for blood work, you can easily just pop your hand out and then you'll have full access. And so the prototype came in and I brought it to the team at New York Presbyterian. I was like, okay, rip it apart. Let's go. What isn't working for you? What don't you like as nurses? And so that's been a really, really fun venture. But like anything else, right? Like, you build something and it has like this great why, but you can't just build something and people come, right? There's the marketing and there's this and there are different angles of it, but I will never regret that concept and having it patented. And like I said, I think it's one of the most,
I was like, this is so cool. I have to ask her about the sweatshirt.
Yes.
I thought it was awesome.
And it was, but it was also helping me to like realize that the only limits of things have always been like things I put on myself, right? Like, I never thought I was creative enough or I hadn't good enough designs or I was funny enough. And that's like one thing I think many of us therapists think, that like all we're good at is like what we do in that session.
Yeah.
And it's like, you are so wildly capable, you probably don't even realize the value you bring to a room in between those sessions. And how can you, whether it's like you put a worksheet up or for some passive income, like you deserve more than like whatever you boxed yourself in as.
Yes. And that one-to-one model, I mean, for people with chronic illness, it's so important to have some other income coming in, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I really feel strongly about that. Okay, so another thing that you have on your bio is talking about the intersection of mental health and AI. And you were working for a mental health tech in the mental health tech industry for quite some time.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk about that. And also in this perspective of people that do have chronic illness, like AI is making our lives a lot easier, just the accessibility with AI. But maybe first you could just tell us about like your role and what you were doing and how you're involved with that. And then let's talk about the other parts of it and how you're still using it in your life today. I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to have the opportunity in 2022 to start up with a startup, Cabana, and they were really an innovative company, and I served as their head of mental wellness there.
Oh, nice.
And so I was in charge of all the content, and a lot of those skills that I used for Rare actually were the skills that like amplified my resume to be a unique resume for them, because it was about content creation and understanding a business, a startup culture, and that's where this mental health tech space really is. I oversaw the moderators there. They do groups, so the group sessions there, and I was really fortunate to work with an amazing product manager who fed my curiosity when it comes to AI and really helped me like had me on the ground level building our AI journal and other features. And it really started to expand my mind like, oh my gosh, this is great for the client, but where can we go for the therapist? And I think that's like kind of where I personally see the most value in AI. There's many chat GPTs, Claudes, Perplexities out there to like have these chat bots. And I don't think we're going to be able to stop that or hone that. But, how can we use AI to really benefit the clinician and more than just our notes? Like, yes, trust me, like obviously huge success rate. It makes everything like smoother with documentation. There's also a component of that your client has to be comfortable with it being recorded. But I think that there's other opportunities for AI as a tool, as opposed to like a client-facing solution that would not just for the therapist that has brain fog, but for the therapist that is holding 40 cases a week.
Yeah.
And going back to back to back, the Rolodex that you do in your mind to try to like get that client's file out. And then they start talking. And then, again, I don't know about anyone else. I know I feel pressure, especially my clients I've been seeing a little bit longer or newer clients for a different reason, like one, want to show I'm paying attention. Rolodexing being like, okay, they mentioned this name. Let me put this dot together for this name. And I'm listening to this conversation while Rolodexing, trying to pull out my clinical. There's a lot happening in your brain. And AI is a great space in which, right, I see opportunity for quality of like therapists and their cognitive load and what they carry to be alleviated a little bit.
Absolutely. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, the cognitive load, especially with that chronic illness on top of it. If you're in a brain fog day, I could do pretty good listening, being empathetic, and maybe thinking of some cool interventions, but to hold space and like have to remember all the details and then have to go type it up, awful, right? Like awful. And you're already exhausted at the end of the day. So having AI in the background, just taking note of everything so you don't have to remember all that stuff.
Yes.
It's like a huge stress reliever, in my opinion. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And like for me, it's always like before sick and after sick. And a lot of the same things that I would want, like, yes, it's even more valuable to me now because my brain doesn't always function the same way every day. And then forget if you have medication issues or you're starting a new medication. There's so many different factors to show up the same way every single week. I think before, though, there's just some days that just take it all out of you. Like there's some days you just get trauma dump. Then you have a crisis. Then you have a suicide assessment. Like at the end of the day, it's like, wow, I haven't eaten. I haven't gone to the bathroom. I most certainly do not remember my 7 o'clock session to write this note.
Yeah, I have no idea what we talked about.
I think, too, that's where notes have become more about insurance than they have about actually helping us to like prepare and follow the treatment plans. And, it's like much of our healthcare system right now, we have forgotten that people are in the center of it. And I don't see a world where AI ever replaces us, but I do see a world where, again, if someone, right, can focus on what the therapist needs outside of insurance and notes, but that Rolodex and also like learning how I practice. AI is great at learning, and so learning how I practice and also knowing based on other sessions and like what skills I would pull from and also giving me some recommendations. I don't know if you've ever been in a session, but I've been in a session where it's just like, I know I need to have something like, I need to have something to do now. And I am blank. I am so blank. And, you take the minute, you take the pause and you hope to gosh, something comes to you. But, something at the bottom of your screen, again, that's just like, hey, based on the conversation, like, have you considered this? And then at least I'm just doing a yes or a no. That doesn't fit the vibe, does fit the vibe. I can adapt it easily. Yeah. But just some sort of thing to pull on, especially it also could only help evidence-based practices.
Yes.
Because then you don't have to be an expert in everything. And also we can stop pretending that like a 2-hour course is going to make you an expert on something.
Absolutely. So having real-time suggestions as the recording's happening. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be amazing to have that. And even with berries and all, I don't know how many AI notes scribes do it right now, but just that initial summary before the session where it's like, this is what you talked about last time. Yep. This is what you probably should talk about this time based on the treatment plan. And here's some intervention ideas based on what's already happened. That is so
helpful.
And then you could take your clinical judgment and decide.
You're the human in the AI loop. Like you're the expert in every single session, except for you're no longer relying on just your memory. I can't tell you how many sessions, again, because I do multiple things throughout the day, I will say like task switching, I think is my least favorite thing. Like when I'm in a flow state and then I have to task switch, it's awful. But it's something, again, I take clients in the morning and clients in the evenings. I usually have a 7 and an 8, and then usually have a 7 and an 8 every day.
Cool.
And
That's
so
cool.
in between my day, then I like work block out different things. But there's a lot of times that after that 8 o'clock session, I'm probably not writing that note, honestly, until 7 o'clock the next morning because I'm just tapped.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times clients have said to me, remember that thing you said you wanted to talk about this week? And I'm like, oh boy, oh no, no shot.
Like,
and I know it's there, and they are so right. But I'm sitting there and I'm scrambling like, what did I say? And I probably meant picking up from there. But that little, just again, that like cliff, just being able to, because again, that doesn't usually end up in a note anyway. And also, let's be serious. How many people are reviewing their notes in between with their 5 minutes if they're not going over?
Nobody
is reviewing their notes. So like you said, Barry's doing this. And I mean, there's a few other platforms doing similar things, but we have mastered the tool of helping us with insurance and getting a client list. Like, I think we've done a good there.
Yeah.
Let's like expand it now. Like, because I think the more we help the clinician, the better the services are, the better the treatment is. I think it also leaves, this is probably gonna be a hot take, so I don't know, but
It's okay. Yeah.
I am a firm believer in that you don't always need therapy in terms of like every week for the rest of your life. If that's good for you, great. But on the flip of it, there's nothing worse than when you're doing well and then life hits you.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to get back with your provider if they're even taking you back. Or again, I feel fortunate that my private practice does not fund my lifestyle. And so I can keep people on my caseload and only see them once every 4 months and it not affect that income stream. But most therapists don't have that dynamic ability to do that. And so they discharge, you know?
Yeah.
But this idea of like somebody who knows the people in your life, knows the characters, like that's effective treatment. Being able to jump right back in and say, like, and how can we create that retainer-like system for a therapist? Again, of course, assuming that you had the right therapist and there's a good relationship and it was, there's many components to it. But I know for myself, I would love the opportunity to have seen some of my therapists again when the most recent life tragedy has happened in my life. And now I'm trying to get in with another therapist. I'm also trying to explain to them things that I just wish they knew because I can't get to the root of what is going on until you know the landscape. And that's hard as a client. Forget as a therapist, it's its own thing. But as a client, I'm going through it now. I can't find a therapist that feels like I can jump into what I need to jump into to alleviate my pain in the moment because I'm trying to search for somebody who can get me in, who can, all the barriers we know. And then once I
chronic
get there,
illness and this chronic physical illness and I mean,
and then once you get there, it's like, now I have to explain to you all the people in my life, how they're playing out in this scenario. And it just, again, I think AI is a tool, right? Even if it's in case transfers, that's still like a huge, no longer doing any diagrams. Being able to teach an AI to like do a family diagram based on sessions so that like I as a client have this and I can be like, hey, this is it. Like come ready on Monday. I think that's where the opportunity really lies in my opinion.
Yeah. And even hearing you say that, the ability it gives clinicians maybe to take back an old client without even having to really think about like, oh, can I fit it in? I've got to like remember what the case was about. I mean, you can literally pull up the chart and tell the AI to give you a summary.
Yes.
Give me all the pertinent information here that I need to remember because I haven't seen this client in 2 years or whatever, And
then take their presenting problem, cross the two, and all of a sudden it's finding themes that you could have never possibly found. And look, again, you're the human, you're the expert that you'd be like, yeah, that's not the theme we're going with. But again, it's never going to be without us. That's not what the profession is. But I think that the opportunity is really there.
Yeah, I could talk about this all day.
Me too.
So fascinating. So you had mentioned AI journals and that sort of thing. Do you have tools you recommend? I know you built some things out. I don't know if they're part of Cabana or if there's something.
Yeah, they're part of Cabana, but Cabana is a really good. I definitely would recommend them. They're a great tool.
Oh, cool.
But one of the things I love that we built there was I was a subject matter expert. So like I was behind all of the AI, making sure that I liked every response. You don't realize how in-depth the back end of AI is. And I think that's where some of the misconceptions come in into why it feels so threatening. It's because you don't always understand I think you don't always understand, and then there's places not doing a great job, right? So there's two things happening, but I think the places that really are having impact are the ones that are having. So another really cool avenue of income for therapists is becoming a subject matter expert in terms of AI.
Yeah.
There are so many jobs now where your sole job will be to look through chats and mark them as safe, mark them as appropriate answers, mark them as evidence-based. For me, that's fascinating. Like, I love that type of thing. So like, I'm always on trying to get those positions because I think that they're really, really cool contract jobs. And it also gives you, again, it helps you understand what's going on. And I think being in the forefront of something with where we're at is so important. It's going to happen whether we stamp our feet or not. And so the more informed we can be. I love what Barry's is doing 100%. I think one of my favorite things, though, is, again, the innovation. When I talked to the founder and the co-founder, that was the exciting part, was that they wanted to talk to clinicians to be like, what do you want and what do you need? And I think that is the most important part when building at this point. Like I said to you, I think we've got the insurance thing on lock. We got the referral system. Everyone needs it there. Like, building your caseload used to be a really big problem in private practice. You couldn't really go into a group practice unless you had a caseload, and you were just a name in an insurance book, basically.
Yeah.
And, I think that that's really, really changed. There's just great programs out. And so I just like that they are actively seeking out therapists to be like, hey, what do you need? And let's innovate with you in mind. I think that's just huge.
It really is. I hope all these AI tech companies stay clinician focused, or like client, whatever the client is, client focused around what they really need, and not VC money or something, just trying to make money off people. And that's, I love Barry's because of that. And it's so true. I mean, they meet every podcast guest that comes on here. They've already met with Tal and Yuval in some capacity. They're like, they're amazing because they generally just want to talk to people. They're the best company ever.
I definitely
I'm
will
not trying to sell berries or anything. I'm just saying,
like I said.
Right. They're the best. Yeah.
Honestly, when you look at some of the bigger companies that have maybe fizzled out or like have gotten maybe not a great reputation, a lot of those companies are the ones that we have seen not putting those voices up front and really putting, again, those more venture capital like dollars ahead of what we're doing. But I think the cool thing is in the space is that you're seeing them kind of fizzle out. Like, you're never going to be able to stop people with a lot of money, but like, you're also seeing Barry's, other people who are continuing to spring up. And I encourage clinicians, don't be afraid to see what you like, see what you don't like, and not be afraid of, reaching out and being like, I would love to try your service. Is there like a free trial, or is there, really put yourself out there and don't be afraid to take on the space, because they're going to do it with or without us. So we might as well be the voices in front of it.
Yes. We need to be upfront with our loud clinical judgment and voices in all of this, for sure. Amazing conversation. Yeah, so interesting. So how do people find you if they want to talk to you or like see what you're up to and all that good stuff?
So on any social media, you can find me at @FindYourRare. I think we put that in the show notes too.
Yeah.
And otherwise, LinkedIn, Kristine Hoestermann. There's very little times that I will not want to collaborate, not want to talk, not want to have a conversation. And so please, like, send me a message, send me an email. I think connection, like, literally saved my life in this space. And so I always say, like, don't be afraid. You have someone in your corner.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking the time today to talk about this. Such an important topic. It really is.
No, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing. I mean, like I said, I feel like I've been like kind of a loud voice in this space of just being like, I'm a therapist and I've got this and I've got OCD and I've got this. And so it's refreshing to hear other clinicians being like, yeah, I've got stuff too, because we're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, well, obviously not. 1 in 10, you said. I didn't even know that's that. It's amazing.
I would have never thought.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much, Kim.